Ray. What do you want to do tonight?
Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
This is Justin and Erica from YouAreCreators, and we have a special guest today. A very well-known author and speaker, Josh Tongol. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's good to be here.
No problem. Joshua Tongol is an author, a speaker, and a healing practitioner. He has authored the best-selling book, So You Thought You Knew, Letting Go of Religion, and more recently, The Secret to Awesomeness. The title alone is just great.
Joshua, you can tell those two books are very different from each other.
Yeah. Joshua comes with a fresh, new approach to spirituality and a very, very interesting story. We are so excited to be here with Joshua. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm excited to, guys.
Okay, Josh, tell us just a little bit more about your background and your experiences.
Okay. Well, my background, I actually grew up as a Christian. So I actually grew up in what you would call, typically would be called fundamentalist Christianity. So I was very religious growing up. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Pentecostal tradition within Christianity. Yeah, so that's what I grew up in, which is actually the denomination that actually believes in, like, healing and spiritual gifts and all those types of things. But when I got older, I had some experiences in my life where I became more skeptical by the age of 17. So I actually became more conservative. And then at that time, that's when I was about 17 years old. I started studying something called apologetics. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but apologetics is basically a field where you study the intellectual arguments for Christianity. And so I became heavily involved in this, where my worldview was very much, my views are the only right way, and that's it. And then everybody else, you're going to go to hell.
Right.
So I studied that for several years. I studied under some well-known theologians and philosophers and apologists at a well-known evangelical school here in California. And that's what I basically wanted to do, was to just travel the world and to prove Christianity is true. So I taught apologetics. I was an evangelist at one time, and then eventually I even became a missionary to the Philippines. So I've always been a type to really question things, but it was always in the sense of, I'll just question religion, other religion, just so I could critique it. You know what I'm saying? And so, but when I got older, when I became a missionary, I reached a point in my life where I started to question everything, like even my own fundamentalist beliefs, that it was just too scary for me to even question, because that's what I was raised with my entire life, and I was actually defending it, for so many years. And so I reached that point in the Philippines where I started to question, like, the major stuff that I was taught in Christianity, and that opened up doors for me to explore other ideas, which ultimately, of course, just led me to where I'm at today. And so, so that's like a summary of just a little bit of my background of, like, my thoughts. And so I was exploring things like, different types of healing modalities. I was just doing the Christian healing back in the day, casting out demons and all doing that. And then I started exploring different other types, like energy healing and so forth. So,
Josh, your background is so similar to mine. I mean,
it's your story, huh? It's our story.
I was raised in a strict Pentecostal church. I mean, strict. Okay. And we went to church maybe 4 days out of a week, and no exaggeration, seriously.
Oh, yeah.
But tell us about your new book, The Secret to Awesomeness.
Yeah, it's a lot different from my first one.
Okay.
So my first one's more on the serious side. I talk about my journey, but the second one, it's not a book about theology, but it's more of a self-help book, metaphysics, whatever you want to call it. And it's just a book about wanting to empower people to create the life that they've always wanted, which is the subtitle. And so I deal with a lot of important topics I think that everybody deals with, and there's subjects like loving yourself, healing your body, manifesting money, finding purpose, achieving your goals, etc. So it's a self-help book, and I take, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, so it's a lot of the material that I've learned from people like Napoleon Hill and Norman Vincent Peale, Joseph Murphy, those guys, Florence Shin, and just sharing my own experiences, my own stories to just make it more relevant, more relatable for people today. So.
Awesome.
Okay, so Josh, you have a chapter on the subconscious mind. Can you give us a little more information on the subconscious mind and how we can use it to our benefit?
Sure. Yeah, so I make a distinction between, like I mentioned in the chapter, that we actually have two minds. And so we have something called a conscious mind, which is a rational mind, and the subjective mind. And so the conscious mind is actually the one that analyzes all the information and actually decides. So just like you guys decided to call me this morning, you're going to pick up your kids at school later. And the subconscious mind is different. It's the irrational mind. And it's their mind that actually reacts based upon the information that's stored in it. And so it actually functions 24/7 because it actually orchestrates all of your bodily functions like pumping blood, digestion, and breathing, etc. And basically it can't even tell the difference between quote unquote reality and the thoughts in your head. Right. And so, but what your subconscious does accept as true, and this is what's really important for people to remember, is what you feel to be true. And so here's my example that I give in the book is, like, let's just say, for example, and I'm sure you can relate to this if you grew up as a Christian, I grew up reading something called devotionals growing up. Like you had a special book to accompany your Bible. And so you would read that every morning, and then you'd feel really, really good. Like you feel blessed, whatever words you want to use. And then later on, like for some reason, you just start feeling like crap all of a sudden, like out of the blue. It's like, and what happened is that they don't realize that, once again, is you have two minds. So your conscious mind, you want to feel good and you want to feel inspired for the day, but your subconscious mind is actually the one running the show. And so people don't realize that we actually operate from our subconscious mind 95% of the time. And so if you want to change your world, it's not just merely in your conscious mind, but if you want to change your world, you got to reprogram your subconscious mind.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, so do we have the ability to create? And if so, where did this power come from?
Yeah, so this ability to create is something that we all are capable of doing. And this power that I mentioned in the book, it's not this power that's a deity outside of you, but it's this power that's within, as I would call it, like this infinite intelligence. It's this consciousness that's capable of infinite possibilities. And so instead of looking outside of yourself for the power, I'm encouraging people to look within. And you just have to tap into it. And tapping into it is nothing special. It's just merely waking up to who you are and recognize what you're able to do, pretty much.
Okay.
So, Josh, what is your definition of God?
Okay. My definition of God is that I don't have a definition. For me, this is just for me. I mentioned this in my first book. In a way, it's an unanswerable question because our words can't totally define God. It's just merely a way for us to explain, ways for us to understand, like on a human level. And so these days, I could say, I would hesitate to say dogmatically, God is like this, God is like that. Just for me having to change my views so much throughout the years, and I even went to seminary, for goodness sake, I'd have to qualify my statement and say, I believe God is like this. I believe God is like that. So I would start off with is to talk about what God is not. And so I would say God is not out there. God is not some sort of deity that's separate or apart from us. God is not like this highest being, but the way I would understand it is to borrow the language of Paul Tillich, this philosopher who said God is the ground of, I believe God is the ground of all being. I believe that God is the source of everything. And so what I talk about in my lectures and when I speak around the country is that I try not to sound too arrogant and make it seem like I figured it all out, but I would talk about my experience of God instead of saying God is like this. So I have these experiences that I have that I would identify as God. And so ultimately, just to sound cliche, right? I believe God is love, but then again, we could debate about what is love.
Right.
But yeah, that's basically it. So ultimately, I can't define it, but this is the way I understand God at this time in my life.
Okay. Now, let's touch on the power of belief. Can you heal yourself with your belief?
Absolutely. Even in medical science, there is this connection between the mind and the body where they're actually intertwined. And so, believe it or not, beliefs actually determine the function of our body, where they can either make us sick or make us well. And I'm sure you guys have probably heard of Lisa Rankin. She wrote Mind Over Medicine.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So she said that, you change your thoughts, you change your behaviors, and you change your behaviors, you change your biochemistry. So this is not like some new age metaphysical thing. It's not just like this woo. It's physiology. And even Bruce Lipton, who I'm sure you're familiar with as well, is like, I was able to learn from him this whole idea, this field of study called epigenetics. And so just to keep it real short, I just learned from him that the way you interpret the world, whether it's through love or through fear, does have the power to change like the cellular environment in your body. So for example, if you interpret your world, you believe this world is full of love and et cetera, it does release certain chemicals, positive chemicals into your blood that does lead to healthy growth. Right. But if you open up your eyes and then you see this world with fear, all of a sudden it releases these stress hormones and inflammatory agents into the blood, and it negatively affects the cells, and it could even cause them to die. So in other words, our interpretation, our beliefs, it's everything. It controls our destiny. But people don't realize that, which is why they play the victim role. And which is why, your channel, the stuff that I'm doing, it's empowering people to tell you, hey, you don't have to be the victim, but your ideas do matter because they have consequences. And so, yes, the mind and our beliefs can heal the body.
Okay, so what is your take on spirituality? Would you say that it is totally different from religion, or is it connected in some way?
Well, I would say there are some distinctions, because obviously this is a question I get all the time. And so I would say that religion has to do more with like these artificial distinctions. So religion would make the distinction between this is secular, this is sacred, this is common, and this is holy, this is unholy, etc. The problem with religion, in my understanding, is that it's only concerned with part of life. Spirituality, on the other hand, for me, is that spirituality is life. So everything's spiritual. And when I was growing up, like I said, like with religion, it's like I have this life of church and my faith on this side, and then I have this whole other world that's more fun, and I'm doing breakdancing, and that's not considered spiritual. You know what I'm saying? And so what I'm seeing these days, or I've been seeing for several years now, is that me spending time with my wife is just as spiritual as reading a religious book or something like that. And so I'm trying to show people God is in everything. And then once you see God in everything, it changes your whole world.
Okay. Back to religion. Okay. Okay, so where do you think religion went wrong?
Well, I think where they went wrong when it comes to the laws is that the universe plays no favorites, as I mentioned in my book. And like I said, when I was growing up, we as the Christians, we grew up with God's favor. We're the ones that are blessed and prospering. Right. And anybody who was making money or getting healed, it was probably demonic, and the devil was, had favor in their lives. And so where religion went wrong is that they created this whole us versus them mentality. Right. And what I've come to discover, which is why I'm more open these days, is that, these principles, these laws that govern everything, this whole universe, it's basically woven into the very fabric of the universe, and it's available to anyone, anytime, and anywhere. So healing, prosperity, etc., it doesn't just belong to one group or sect or even one special, quote-unquote, anointed person. It's available to everybody. And it resides in everybody, which is it's a beautiful thing when you think about it. That it doesn't just happen just because you grew up in a particular religion, but it's just who you are.
Right. So, Josh, let's talk about money.
All right.
How can we manifest money into our lives?
Okay. Well, first off, I would tell people, trust that this universe is a friendly universe. So that's a start. Either you believe this universe is for you or it's against you, and that makes a big difference in your life when you're in a tough situation financially. And secondly, I would tell people, start to distance yourself from people who instill doubt in you or make you feel like crap when it comes to money. So I would tell people, start hanging out with people that could help you reach your financial goals. I remember Steve Harvey was in an interview with Oprah. He said, you know, if 9 of your friends are broke, you're going to be number 10. And so it's true that we tend to, you know, act like and resonate with a lot of people that are around us, you know. So in other words, choose your friends wisely. Another thing that I would encourage people to do is to start counting your blessings, and that's something that you can do even now.
Gratitude,
you know.
right.
And I mentioned even in the book, you know, you could just have a few coins in your pocket, or just a clothes on your back, or just you have shoes to walk in, and then you could start to feel prosperous. And for some reason that I don't understand how it all works, the more you focus on feeling good and staying at a higher vibration, just certain things just start coming into your life somehow. I don't know how it all works though, you know. So when it comes to like let's just say you have a few bills, just lay them out in front of you and just start feeling them in your hands. I'm talking about like practical ways you can start to feel good. You just do whatever it takes to make you feel good about money, and somehow you're able to attract more of it into your life. Now, if you want to get into the more quote-unquote practical sense of money, you know, I tell people, learn to pay yourself first. That means, like, before you pay off your bills, learn how to invest, you know, into, like, stocks and stuff like that. You could also, when you receive a bill, like the bills that you owe, you know, I would tell people just close your eyes and say thank you, and just already acknowledge that your bill's already paid, even if you can have the money in your bank account already. Right. You're just acknowledging it already, trusting that the universe is good, and somehow, once again, don't worry about the how. It'll be paid for, because in a sense it's already paid, because all possibilities exist. So what you're doing is that you're bringing that reality into your own life now. You know, and so there's many ways that you can do it, through vision boards, you know, affirmations, stuff, you know, saying stuff like, I'm getting richer every day, or money comes to you, but you don't just say it, you actually feel it. And that's where the power comes, because that's why there's a lot of people like myself. Back in the day, I would like, I'm rich, and I don't feel rich, you know. And so I'm trying to show people, you got to feel the word, so to speak.
You got to feel
and
it.
That's where there's power.
You got to feel it.
You got to feel
Absolutely.
it. So those are the different ways. And I'll never forget this group of people. I didn't even know who they were, and I mentioned this in the book, where they jumped on a plane just to meet my wife and I didn't know who they were, and they were sensing that God told them to meet me or something like that. And so we met up, and they just started sharing to me stories about money. And then they said, Josh, you know, people use money, you know, people use the money that they have, and then they decide what they want. We decide what we want, and then the money comes. And when they said that to me, I was like, wow, that really resonates with me, because that's what I've been doing, you know, because there were times when I was a missionary, I didn't have the money, but then when I would, like, start to believe, all of a sudden, the money would come, you know. But usually, like, some people would be like, oh, I don't have it, so I'm not going to get it. But I'm having the perspective now, it's like, you want it, believe it. You know, something you can attract the money somehow and create it.
I love that.
I love it. Okay, so, okay, Josh, what are some of your personal manifestation experiences?
Okay. Like with anything?
With anything.
Okay.
Using the universal laws.
Sure. Like a big one in my life was healing. And so back in 2005, I was breakdancing at a party. I was battling some guy, and I injured my back, and it was bad. I've been dancing my whole life, so that was like a big thing for me. So I was battling some guy, and I ended up getting something called a herniated disc and suffering something called sciatica. So,
ouch.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that or your audience, but what happened is that in my spine, in between your vertebrae, are your discs, and it was actually getting crushed, and so it was bulging out, and it was something called a sciatic nerve, and it was shooting down to my leg. So, in other words, for a while, it hurt like hell, and not too long after that, I was diagnosed with a condition called gastroesophageal reflux disease, which is GERD, the problem with my throat. And so I had these two things at the same time, pretty much at the same time in my life. So that was one of the worst times in my entire life, physically and emotionally. And that was a time that I was not into healing. I was skeptical at that time in my life.
Right.
And so I went on this journey where I met this guy who was miraculously healed, and has had the most well-documented miracle I've ever seen in my whole life, you know, documentation from UCLA, from Germany, etc., and it influenced me. And so at that time, I started investigating and looking into healing more and understanding that my healing has already taken place. So in my world at that time, of course, I'm in a lot of pain. And so that doesn't make any sense to me, right? Realistically speaking. But in faith, this is where the faith comes. That just sounds crazy to people. When I would pray, quote unquote, I would pray for my body and I would believe that I'm already healed. And then I would see myself already healed to the point where I'd actually feel it. And then not too long after that, this is just one of my greatest testimonies I could ever share. My back's healed and my GERD is totally gone. Totally. Wow. And like even if you ask me what I eat every day, you'll trust me, my GERD is gone. there's a lot of things I couldn't eat before. Like I couldn't eat anything, man. Like I couldn't eat like acidic stuff, chocolate, soda, Filipino food, you know. But now I pretty much eat everything that I want without any fear. I could eat at midnight. I know that's stuff that people don't recommend. I'm just saying I eat with no fear. And that's something that I cherish to this very day. And even now, my back's good. I don't have any back problems. I'm 34 years old now. You know, I could carry heavy things. And every day I'm still reminded of my healing, every single day. And that's how much gratitude I have in my heart, because I never thought when I was in my mid-20s that I thought my life was going to be ruined, you know, after my back injury, because I couldn't even carry a laptop. I would literally just like fall to the ground when I'm in school. I would fall out of nowhere because it would shoot down to my legs. And I had many nights where I would cry, just be like, man, what the hell is this? You know, God, why are you doing this to me? I'm a pastor. Right. You know, I would blame God. And then I didn't realize that the responsibility was on me. And believing who I am and what I'm capable of doing. And so I'm even just getting emotional just thinking about it right now. I'm just so thankful that my future is still bright because, you know, I don't have any kids yet. I know you guys have kids already. I was always scared that I would never be able to carry my child, you know, so now I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome.
There's just a lot of things to be thankful for. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love hearing the healing stories. So, Josh, can you just share with our listeners some of the projects that you're working on right now?
Cool, yeah. I just finished my audiobook just recently for my latest book, so that took me a while. I did that all myself in my own home. I'm also working on my new book, my next book already. And I have so many books in my head, guys. Like there's too many. And so this one might be a little bit different as always, just trying to explore. So it might actually be a novel. Who knows?
Oh, cool.
And I just started my coaching business, and that just started last night. And so I've been working on that. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I'm working on right now. We'll probably be doing some traveling here and there throughout the year because we're actually moving back to the Philippines. And so we're moving back. So my wife, before I was talking with you guys, we were just talking about bringing my mother-in-law here, you know, to visit America before we head back. And so we love it in the Philippines. But we also love it here. But I think we got so used to the culture over there and our friends back home. And so we're also preparing for that.
Cool. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Josh, for sharing your story and some of your knowledge with us. For our listeners,
thank you.
If you all want, no problem. If you all want to check out more information on Josh or some of his books and how to purchase them, or to just keep up with his move to the Philippines and all the other fun stuff that he's working on, you can check out his website, which is joshuatongol.com, JOSHUATONGOL.com.
Awesome.
Josh, it's been a pleasure, brother.
Oh, pleasure too. Thanks, guys. It's an honor. You guys are doing a great job. I've been watching your videos since I was in the Philippines, guys.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool, man.
So hopefully we can meet in person.
We appreciate that. We appreciate that, man. Seriously.
Keep it up. I'm inspired with the stuff that you put out. So thank you, guys.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. Okay, well, this is Justin and Erica from YouAreCreators, and we support your dreams.